What if I told you that one of the most overlooked horror films of the 2010s contains a terrifying commentary on how easily we abandon our humanity when survival is on the line? Released in 2013, Devil's Pass presents itself as a straightforward found-footage thriller about students investigating the infamous Dyatlov Pass incident. But beneath its surface lies a profoundly disturbing exploration of moral degradation that most viewers completely miss. While audiences focus on the supernatural elements and time travel mechanics, the film's most significant achievement is its subtle portrayal of how ordinary people systematically abandon their ethical foundations when faced with existential threats. The movie begins with 5 graduate students who represent the pinnacle of civilized society, educated, rational, and morally grounded individuals embarking on what seems like an academic expedition. These aren't hardened survivors or military personnel. They're scholars driven by intellectual curiosity, which makes their subsequent transformation all the more chilling. What the film masterfully demonstrates is not just physical survival horror, but the complete erosion of human decency under pressure. Notice how the characters' decision-making process evolves throughout their ordeal. Initially, they approach every situation with careful consideration, democratic discussion, and genuine concern for each other's well-being. They document everything meticulously, follow safety protocols, and maintain their academic objectivity even when faced with increasingly bizarre discoveries. But as their situation deteriorates, we witness a systematic dismantling of these civilized behaviors. The first cracks appear when they discover the abandoned Soviet facility. Rather than retreating as any rational person might, they choose to investigate further, prioritizing their research goals over their safety. This represents the first compromise of their judgment, but it's framed as intellectual courage rather than reckless endangerment. Film cleverly presents this as admirable dedication to their mission, masking the underlying selfishness of putting personal achievement above survival instincts. As they venture deeper into the facility and encounter increasingly disturbing evidence of past experiments, their moral compass begins to spin wildly. Students start making decisions that directly contradict their earlier principles. They begin withholding information from each other, making unilateral choices that affect the entire group, and prioritizing individual survival over collective welfare. What's particularly unsettling is how naturally these transitions occur. There's no dramatic moment where someone announces they're abandoning their ethics. Instead, it's a gradual erosion that feels almost inevitable. Film suggests that our moral frameworks are far more fragile than we'd like to believe, and that the veneer of civilization is surprisingly thin. When the supernatural elements emerge and the students encounter the temporal anomalies that form the film's central mystery, their responses reveal how completely they've abandoned their original identities. They no longer approach situations with scientific curiosity or methodical analysis. Instead, they react with pure survival instinct, making increasingly desperate and morally questionable choices. The most disturbing aspect of this transformation is how it mirrors real-world scenarios where ordinary people have committed atrocities under extreme circumstances. Film doesn't present these characters as inherently evil or corrupt. Instead, it shows how environmental pressures can strip away the social conditioning that normally guides our behavior. This theme becomes even more significant when we consider the historical context of the Dyatlov Pass incident that inspired the film. The real event involved experienced hikers who died under mysterious circumstances, and various theories have attempted to explain what happened. The Devil's Pass suggests that perhaps the most terrifying explanation isn't supernatural or conspiratorial, but psychological. Maybe the true horror lies in understanding how quickly civilized people can revert to something far more primitive when their survival is threatened. Film's time travel elements serve as more than just a plot device. They're a metaphor for how trauma can trap us in cycles of destructive behavior. The students become caught in a temporal loop that mirrors their psychological entrapment in increasingly violent survival strategies. They're literally unable to escape the consequences of their moral compromises, forced to relive and reinforce their degradation indefinitely. This creates a nightmarish scenario where redemption becomes impossible, and the characters are condemned to repeat their worst impulses eternally. What makes this theme particularly relevant to contemporary audiences is how it reflects our current social climate. We're living in an era where ordinary people regularly abandon long-held principles when faced with perceived threats to their way of life. Film serves as a cautionary tale about how quickly civilized society can collapse when people prioritize immediate survival over ethical considerations. The consequences of this moral degradation extend far beyond the immediate survival scenario. Even if the characters had escaped their physical predicament, the psychological damage of abandoning their principles would have lasted a lifetime. The film suggests that some lines, once crossed, fundamentally alter who we are as human beings. This isn't just about survival horror, it's about the horror of losing ourselves in the process of trying to stay alive. The true tragedy of Devil's Pass isn't that the characters die, it's that they stop being the people they once were long before their physical demise. This transformation serves as a mirror for audiences, forcing us to confront uncomfortable questions about our own moral flexibility and what we might be capable of under similar circumstances. Have you noticed other films that explore this theme of moral degradation under pressure? Share your thoughts on how seemingly good people can change when survival is at stake, and let me know what other underrated horror films you think deserve deeper analysis.